Hello everyone, welcome to the Scumdogs Kennel. I'm your host, Chris Williams, and in today's Cryptid Corner mini-episode, I have two stories, one involving the Grey Aliens, another account with the Reptilians, this time witnessed in an airport. Let's get into the first story, which is titled, Federal Land Officer Recalls Terrifying Grey Alien Encounter in Fort Lumpton, Colorado. Let's get into it now, folks. Almost 4 years after this incident, a retired federal land officer came forward with an account that he says has never left him. The encounter allegedly occurred on May 31st, 1986, while he was sleeping on a couch inside his parents' home in Fort Lumpton, Colorado. What began as a strange white light outside the window quickly became a close-range confrontation with several gray entities. So, let's go forth and listen to this, encounter of the third kind. Or just an abduction encounter, folks, right now. Let's get into the face of it, huh? Case file, date May 31st, 1986. Time, night, exact time not given. Location, Fort Lumpton, Colorado. Setting, witnesses' parents' home, near an outdoor concrete basketball court and open grass area. Witnesses, male, 20 years old at the time. Leader, a GS-13 federal land officer. Reported by witness. Phenomenon. Bright white portal-like light, gray alien entities, paralysis, and possible telepathic communication. Environmental conditions. Nighttime residential setting, outdoor light observed near a basketball court. Ooh, sounds interesting, folks. Let's read on and hear exactly where this goes. Let's get into the story and hear what this young man at the time basically felt at the encounter with something he probably just thought was just a figment of people's imaginations. The paralysis. I tried to move, but my body would not respond. I was frozen through, folks. Though frozen is probably the wrong word, and it was more like being quadriplegic. The only things I could move were my eyelids and my eyes. I could look over and see them, staring down at me, but I could not move. I was fully awake. This continued for what I estimate was somewhere between 15 minutes and half an hour. I know that seems like a big range for someone describing something while fully awake, but it was terrifying. A minute can feel like forever under those circumstances. Indeed, folks, I could probably imagine that it would be. Later, I learned that people experience sleep paralysis and sometimes describe similar events, but this was not sleep paralysis. I was awake and aware. I know what I saw. The paralysis started after I had already seen them come out of the light near the basketball court, and after I was lying back on the couch. At some point, they paralyzed me. Indeed. So, he could move at first, folks, as they were, seemingly coming out of a light, but then it was like they struck him with some sort of ray that basically, froze him, paralyzed him so he could not move. As I said, folks, that's what happened to this particular witness, who was 20 at the time, folks. I would love to ask this man before this incident if he believed in aliens and abductions and hear his, opinion on them. Because after, he became a true believer, folks. But now let's read on. The entity's behavior. They seemed to enjoy what was happening. I felt it as though I was reading their thoughts or something similar. More accurately, it seemed that they were communicating that to me without speech. Other than staring at me, I do not know what else they were trying to accomplish. During the encounter, I struggled to move even one finger. I could feel my body all over, but I could not move it. I tried to fight them so I could get away. If I had been able to move, I would have gone down the hallway to my room and grabbed my .243 rifle, but I could not move. So it sounds like, in his opinion, folks, that they were doing this maliciously, trying to basically freeze him and basically terrify him, folks. Now, that is something. In a lot of stories with alien encounters, folks, it seems like these encounters are bordering on torture rather than any scientific inquiry, like they just abducted him like the way we abduct animals in the wild and study them. But this sounds different. But let's read on again, folks. The encounter ends. Then they left. I did not see exactly how they exited, but I imagine they did so through the same opening. I have the distinct feeling that this has happened several times and may happen again, but that was the only instance I clearly remember. There may have been something when I was 5 years old in Masolia, Montana, but that could have been a bad dream. Indeed. But let's hear the aftermath now, folks. I did tell some family members and a couple of friends about it, but he described it as the worst bad dream ever. So he didn't want them to believe that it was an actual incident here, folks, because remember, this was basically back in the 80s when this sort of thing was basically just scoffed at. He probably himself scoffed and laughed at people who basically said they'd seen aliens, let alone people who had actually been abducted, folks. So, yeah, no doubt he basically wanted his family and friends to think it was just a dream he had. But let's read on and hear more about the aftermath. I am letting you know now that it was never a dream. I was wide awake and aware. Now, approximately 30 years later, I have the guts to report this in hopes that it may help somebody or assist with your research. I am mentally stable. I have managed millions of acres of federal land as a primary land officer. I am a GS-13, 30-year federal employee with a staff of 30. I am not some nutcase. I am scientifically trained. I have had no mental issues, no drug issues, and I have a very long and responsible career and family life. I'm letting you know this actually happened. And how it affected him, and, how it has basically affected his life, folks. And he says that he didn't let it affect him, and that he has a stable family life, folks. I kind of believe this man, folks, from basically what he's written here. It sounds very sincere and stuff like that. If he's lying, then he's an incredibly creative writer, folks, and he might basically have missed his actual calling by basically being literally a writer. Because I can accurately say this guy is pretty damn, giving you a good impression that this actually happened to him just from basically reading about it alone. Now, do you believe this man, folks? As I said, I kind of basically am falling on the belief part because he does sound sincerely believable here. But that's just my opinion, folks. I would love to hear your own. So leave those comments or, statements down below so I can hear them, folks. But let's read on now. Late night reptilian encounter reported inside Denver International Airport. And here about yet another encounter in, Denver International Airport of weird phenomena that has basically been stipulated before, folks. Or at the very least, people have said, Denver International Airport, there's something weird about it, folks. Let's read on now. Several years ago, I received the following account from a witness who says she encountered a strange reptilian-like being inside Denver International Airport. In March 2006, the incident reportedly occurred around 1:30 a.m. while the witness was ill, disoriented, and trying to find her way through the airport's train tunnel system. What she first dismissed as an unusual sculpture allegedly vanished moments later. Yeah, she says that she saw an alien being, folks, and apparently it looks like she thought it was a statue at first. But let's read the case file now. Date, March 2006, time approximately 1:30 a.m., location, Denver International Airport, Denver, Colorado, setting, interior airport tunnel or concourse train area after arrival. Witnesses HJ, also identified as Heidi Joe. Report by witness account received by Phantoms and Monsters. Phenomenon, reptilian-like humanoid entity. Environmental conditions, very quiet airport interior, very few people present. Late night arrival. Witness was ill and urgently seeking a restroom. If there were any other witnesses, folks, maybe they basically had gone to the toilet as well. And she didn't notice it. But I kind of doubt that she basically was telling lies about basically being the only witness. She probably was, though, folks. I'm just thinking that, is it possible that there were any other witnesses? Maybe they were sick as well? Maybe. I would not be surprised, folks, if this girl or woman was sick at the time. Maybe it was some sort of flu that she had contacted on the plane, perhaps. Or maybe somewhere similar. But let's read on now, folks. I was at Denver International Airport around 1:30 a.m. I was very ill and had traveled all the way from New York City to Colorado to see a physician who specialized in IC, a bladder disease that can mimic cancer. I had never been inside such a huge airport before. It was extremely quiet with very few people around. I had no idea where to go after getting off one of those subway train things. There was no one nearby to ask such direction I should take. As I stood in the tunnel after getting off the train, I kept looking around and down the long hallways trying to find a bathroom. Because of my medical condition, I had a constant need to urinate. Either way, she sounds sincere here, folks, in that she wasn't under any influence of drugs or even some sort of symptom of the disease, folks. But is it possible that the sign that she had here was because she was, under the influence of maybe some drug or maybe some disease-related issue? Perhaps. We'll discuss that point later on because we have to read well, more of the article. That was when I noticed something very strange. At first, I thought it was a very tall sculpture. It looked almost like a dinosaur, but it had an alligator-like skin, a lizard-shaped face, and very large eyes. It did not move, since I had already seen some strange-looking art in odd displays near the airport's main entry area. I assumed it was another bizarre piece of airport artwork. Then my phone rang. It was Dr. Brookhoff, asking if I had arrived at the airport. As I turned in the direction he had explained to me, I looked back. And, like with so many encounters with weird entities and cryptids, it was gone, folks. The fact that reptilians are basically, well, considered an alien, well, race, folks, it's not surprising that this sighting ended with her basically looking away from this entity and then looking back and it was gone. That is something we've read so many times before, folks. It's so, well, by the book that it's not funny. Now, let's read on and get back to the story that she's telling us. The weird, tall, lizard-like thing was gone. It had simply vanished. I'm not surprised, folks. This happened in March 2006. Dr. Brookhoff had since passed away. In my opinion, the circumstances were suspicious at the time. I had never heard of reptilians. Later, after watching Conspiracy Theory with Jesse Ventura, I looked into it and realized what I believe I had seen. I know what I saw now. I am 100% sure it was a reptilian. I am so grateful to God and to Dr. Brookhoff for picking me up that night, HJ. Indeed, folks, it was good that she didn't spend any more time there than usual. Perhaps, well, whatever reason, she had seen this entity, folks. Yeah, for whatever that reason, maybe she is now of interest to these beings. It could be that maybe due to the fact that she was under, well, the influence of some sort of disease, folks. This basically allowed her to look through some sort of veil, allowing her to see these entities. It has been said that basically drugs, sometimes even the symptoms of some diseases, can allow people to pierce and see basically ghosts, aliens, and other beings that are basically obscured from our normal vision. So maybe this is exactly what, well, Miss Joe here experienced. Either way, the fact that this being maybe disappeared as soon as she looked away, folks, does not mean that it was actually gone. It could have basically been glamored. Glamored, and was still there, just invisible to her, and was maybe deciding whether or not to, well, take her out. And I don't mean for dinner, folks. I mean, it could be that if she had not basically been picked up by her doctor in a timely manner, she would have never left, well, the Denver International Airport, and no one would have ever seen her again. That's something we have to, well, appreciate here, folks. It could have happened. Now, with the first account, with basically those alien beings, folks, they seemingly, from the witness's description, they gleefully were terrorizing this particular witness, folks. It could be that they were studying his, well, behavior here, folks. They wanted him to feel these emotions, even evil emotions, because they were, well, in no danger at all, because they could clearly stop this man if they wanted to. I mean, they clearly froze him and he could do nothing. But do you think that basically these emotions he had, I mean, they sound like the kind of emotions most people would have after basically being literally frozen and then abducted by these beings, folks, terrorized and stuff like that, because we don't know if this man remembers totally the events that happened to him. There could be more. Maybe they injected him, or maybe they took him and then returned him back to his bed, folks, after doing some sort of experimental procedures. He himself says that maybe something similar to this happened when he was 5 years old, folks, so maybe. Either way, both encounters basically paint alien beings in not the best light. The gray aliens have this particular, almost sadistic glee to them in this particular story, folks. But this reptilian being, unlike other accounts, it didn't obviously exhibit any hostile behavior. Either way, both stories are incredibly intriguing. But now we're at the end, so please go subscribe to my YouTube channel. Read comics that are bad for you. You can use the YouTube link down below in the descriptions or the chat to go subscribe to me. Hit that like button for me. Make sure you're still subscribed. Leave some comments down below. Hit that bell for notifications. Make sure at the part of the bell that'll give you all future notifications, and please share this video out. I'm Chris Williams from the Scumdogs Kennel. Thank you all for joining me. I'll be back again tomorrow with another great video, so be sure to come back again then. Until next time, folks, I'll see you all again soon.